Thank you, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bitong LIN, and I'm a PhD candidate at Nanjing University, working on digital labor and economic sociology. Before I begin, I would like to briefly apologize for the simplicity of my slides. As a PhD student recently negotiating deadlines, the design may be modest, but I hope the arguments are not. Start from the introduction part. Gacha monetization is widely criticized for its ethical and economic implications. At the same time, revenue rankings, banner, performance charts, and monthly who won discussions circulate very prominently in fan spaces. Let me ask briefly, how many of you have ever seen or participated in the discussions about Genshin revenue rankings or the cash flow or even casually? Yeah. I believe there's many of you. And this phenomenon is not peripheral. And in the case of Genshin Impact, money does not remain backstage, but it comes visible, measurable, discussable, and I would argue playable. Terms like win, crushing, like yin, or metaphors such as Genshin Impact is the highest mountain, the longest river of Chinese game, things like that, function as shared vocabulary within the community. So my central research question is, how is this legitimacy constructed? And more specifically, how do players move from spending money to actively making sense of, justifying, and normalizing gacha monetization when revenue becomes a central focus of fan interaction? And to the theoretical background, first, like most monetization research emphasizes ethical tensions, like profit versus player rights, art versus commerce, or design versus regulation. And gacha systems are often framed as predatory or harmful. In my opinion, what is missing in this part is not critique, but an explanation of everyday legitimacy. How does monetization become not merely tolerated, but culturally meaningful in the practice of players? And in fan studies, we often emphasize participation, affect, and community. And in political economy, we emphasize the exploitation and value extraction from the free digital labors, but we frequently remain within an empowerment versus exploitation binary. This leaves a gap that why do contemporary fans willingly engage in digital free labor, even when that labor concerns corporate performances? And how does this labor feel meaningful rather than imposed? And this is the gap I address in this research. For the analytical intervention part, I approach legitimacy as a socially constructed outcome, following the Zuckerman's theory that revenue-oriented discourse is treated as economic meaning-making. And the commenting is not merely reaction, but is interpretive, justificatory, and relational labor. And I developed 3 interlocking mechanisms that explain how monetization legitimacy is constructed together. These mechanisms form that I call investing play. Investing play is the culture mechanism through which digital capital secures consent. Importantly, this consent is not imposed from above. It is actively produced through the participation inside the game's fandom. And players are not simply persuaded, but they help construct the meaning of monetization themselves. And for the data source, this study focuses on Bilibili, the Bizhan, as the primary hub for the Chinese ACG community. Bilibili provides the most representative platform for observing Genshin's core player discourse. And I conducted a targeted search on October 1st, 2025, using the keyword 原神流水, Genshin cash flow, and Genshin revenue. And I selected the algorithm helped me select the first 100 videos that occurred on my page. And the algorithm captured 2 temporal layers. First, now, the immediate market reaction to the banners active at the time. Second, and the canon, like the historically significant revenue videos with millions of views that define collective memory in the fandom. And this sample therefore captures both short-term market sentiment and long-term community consensus. And come to the sampling and method part, I use stratified purposive sampling. And I focus on not only the root comments that articulate consensus, but also the highly visible reply threads that show contestation on the page. Methodologically, the study adopts grounded theory proceeding through open, Excel, and selective coding. And for now, all comments were manually coded by myself because I plan to do the implement per topic analysis. However, Bilibili comments contain heavy slangs and in-group references that require domain-specific training. Additionally, Bilibili has strong anti-crawling mechanisms. I have to do everything manually. That takes too much time. At this stage, manual coding ensures interpretive accuracy, and the coded dataset will later serve as training material for like larger scale computational analysis. And let's come see the environment of the video. The revenue-oriented videos are not marginal. The median views exist over 50,000, and some reach several million even. Revenue discourse from the stable and highly visible information environment within the community. There are two types of the videos. First, the leaderboard or data spectacle type. This focus on the rankings and the numerical comparison. In some videos, there's only the lines go up and down of their revenue with the cool music without saying a word. And in my sample, over half of the videos emphasizes metric power, confirming that cash flow has become a lingua franca of the community. And the second one is the corporate narratives. This frame commercial success as a proof of the technological competence and long-term strategy. Many explicitly position success as a victory of the the otaku or the G communities themselves. Third, the critical reflexive part. This question design strategies or monetization-related decisions. Importantly, only a very small minority of highly recommended videos engage in the explicit structure critique of the monetization model itself. Most critic videos focus instead on monetization strategy or only the game design choices. Even critic discourse remain anchored in revenue. And here's an overlook of my code book. There are four main things, discursive families. The first is the metric power. The second is the justification. And the third is identity work. The last is the delegitimization. For example, the metric play involves interpreting trends and statistical scope. And the combat power uses revenue as symbolic victory of the fandom and the game. The good capital frames revenue as supporting technology and future development for Mihail or Hayoverse. And the gatekeeping questions critics' legitimacy, and the disenchantment exposes the commercial logic to the players who immerse happily with the fantasy game. And this structure allows us to trace discourses movement. And here are four main things I collect from my second level course. And here are four categories. The first is the metric power and justification, things like that. The largest category is metric play. This suggests that interpretation rather than phrases or blame dominates the discussion inside. And the combat power and gatekeeping follow. Good capital for itself is also prominent. This pattern indicates that players are actively working through numbers, not passively reacting. As you can see on this chart. And come to the delegitimizing discourses. These discourses appears primarily under videos that already adopt a critical tone in their user-generated content. Within the decodes, product defective dominance, critique typically concerns gameplay quality, pacing, or value for money. Explicit reflection on gacha as gambling or systemic exploitation remains limited. This is important to clarify that these critical comments were intentionally oversampled in order to achieve a thematic situation and refine my codebook during pilot coding. So maybe in the whole sample, it won't be that much. And they do not represent the dominant discourse in the overall recommendation environment. And let's see the heat map. Like, I collect over 300. There are many long commands. There are over 300 words. So I do like 2 layers of codes. This heat map shows how codes co-occur. Like rather than isolate categories, metric play frequently co-occurs with investment and good capital. Comeback power often co-occurs with metric interpretation, and this suggests that interpretation is foundational. Metric reasoning becomes the infrastructure of consent. Before players justify or defend monetization, they first make revenue numerically intelligible. And here it comes to the 3 mechanisms. The first is revenue metric as interactive object. It becomes an interactive object that videos introduce numerical narratives, and the players extend these narratives through clarification, contextualization, and forecasting. Revenue is not external to play. In a game structured by numerical progression and combat value, revenue itself becomes part of the broader quantitative logic, and it resembles an extension of the game's own stats system. Here is the first step of investing play. Capital accumulation becomes playable. When revenue is treated like a comeback stat, is no longer distant corporate data. It becomes a shared object of analysis. Through interpretive labor, players transform profit into collective metric. And the second one is spending transformed into participation. Spending is revenue is framed as enabling technology, production quality, and future updates. Developers are represented as passionate otakus and competent entrepreneurs. The dual image bridges technical authenticity and capital accumulation. The consumption becomes contribution, and this is the moral translation stage. Capital accumulation reframed as collective investment, and the technology becomes a moral alibi of the capital. And the third one is the tension displayed outward. The potential tension between player spending and the corporate profit is displayed outward. Instead of framing monetization as an internal contradiction, discourse redirect critique towards external groups. Boundary work stabilize legitimacy. And when capital aligns with identity, resistance becomes socially costly. And for this map show the integrated mechanism together. Like the metric structure, interpretation, and moral economy translates spending into participation. And through this interlocking process, digital capital becomes morally intelligible and culturally desirable and socially defended. And the consent here is participatory but not passive. And players do not simply accept monetization, they co-produce the legitimacy of it. And to the conclusion part, further revenue is narrated as the condition of future experience. Individual spending is reframed as collective production. Technology becomes the moral justification, and the legitimacy is sustained not only by the corporation but by community discourse. Free labor here is interpretive and justificatory labor. And it normalizes monetization as meaningful, rational, and even necessary. Investing play is the community process through which digital capital secures consent, not through coercion, but through shared calculation, moral translation, and identity alignment. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the time and listening. And here's my reference. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any questions for Bitong?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I noticed that you choose Bilibili as the platform you used for this research, but I also heard that Bilibili is kind of like the otaku-oriented or kind of male-centered, dominated. I don't know, because there could be like a. Do you think that there could be like a gender bias in this? And would you consider maybe including other platforms, like more female-oriented or like that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think there definitely, males are more represented in the Bilibili, but I think they are the people who care about the revenue most, right? And compared with, the NGA or tier bar, things like that, Bilibili is kind of like comparatively more gender neutral, and there are female users. So, but I will consider like include Renault or something within my data set. Thank you.
Do we have? Oh yeah, Calvin. Nice.
Yeah, a really cool analysis. One of the so it seemed like the discussions you targeted for data collections are ones that are like dedicated, like their topic is monetization.
Yes.
Did you kind of get any? This might be you need to go and do a different study, but like I'm aware that you might just not have this data. Did you see any discussions where monetization or like this kind of revenue was being used to like support other central points? I guess I'm wondering if you have any insight into kind of like casual mentions of it where it wasn't like the central topic of conversation.
Sorry, like what do you mean by the central point?
So like, I guess what's an example conversation? Like somebody justifying that their character is the favorite is the best because of how much revenue they generated, but they're in like a context where, because it seems like your search was like, these are the videos that are about revenue, rather than like, these are like community discussions in which revenue is like brought up as like a side topic. Like, do you have any insight into this second form of conversation? I guess is the question.
Yeah. Actually, I was willing to do it if I, can do the social network analysis because, the most viewed videos are uploaded in 2022 maybe, and it definitely set up the discourses for the later videos. And if I got more capacity of technology, I'll definitely do it. Thank you for the comments. Thank you so much.
Do we have any more questions, Marcus?
Thank you for the analysis. That was really interesting. I'm interested on your thoughts on what the results might be if you do the study not just in another platform, but also in another culture. I just tried replicating this on YouTube. I tried Genshin monetization, and I found that actually like, the first video basically didn't even hit like 200K views, essentially, which kind of chimed with my initial impression that like, I have never thought about Genshin in such detail. I mean, I'm sure it comes up in the Western forums sometimes, but not so much, I feel. And I wonder if that represents some kind of, maybe not necessarily an East-West divide, but like a difference in kind of the type of consumer. Like, I'm thinking again about Yon Wu's talks about the airship in which the consumers feel their money buys them a service as opposed to people, as you described, who feel their money is going for the greater good. Your thoughts on that, please?
Thank you for the question. Like, I think the cultural background definitely matters. I think the Chinese game players may have some special emotional attachment with Genshin since it's the first game that achieved this huge business success on overseas. So like the Chinese game player communities, they will care. Even some of my friends, they don't play Genshin. They will still care if it's still doing well or something. And yeah, I think looking into like different cultural background will be really interesting. Like, I think the players overseas may also care about the revenue or cash, but may not Genshin. Yeah, thank you so much.
We can have a quick question. 30 seconds to go.
Well, it's more like a response to the previous question, but like if you go to the subreddit Gacha Gaming, they have this monthly threads where they like compile all the revenue, and it's mostly about the cyber dig measuring between the different Gacha game revenues. So it's like they call it a PVP. So more focus on this comparison and like this like fandom identity. My digital gambling simulator is making more money than yours, so I'm like better somehow. Might be interesting to look at if you're interested. And also to the presenter, this is also a follow-up to the first question about different platforms and the gender representation. Because like I noticed that on Billy, one of the most popular uses of this revenue graphs is like toxic men trying to prove that games oriented towards women or like male characters that are designed to appeal to women make less money and therefore deserve like less attention. Like, have you considered looking more into like the toxic aspect of this discussions?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I always think about it, but I can't find it with my open code. Like they pretend they don't care about the gender issues. There's no things I can code it as gendered, but maybe I can do more like background research about the users, or after I did social network analysis, maybe I can find some secret thread along with the gender issue. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess our time's up. So another round of applause for Bitong.
Thank you.